One of the absolute best places to learn about self-publishing or most anything, it's going to be on podcasts. And that's why we're going to talk about self-publishing podcasts today. This is Chris Baird from selfpublishingmadeeasynow.com, where self-publishing doesn't have to be so hard. So let's get into the best self-publishing podcasts. One of the things you have to keep in mind when it comes to podcasts, it's that you don't have to be seated in one location. So unlike videos where you're going to be watching the videos, with the podcast, we can just skip that altogether. You also can put them on double speed if you need to. You can download all of the episodes and have them already queued up, and it gives you a lot of advantages, especially when you're trying to learn self-publishing. Podcasts are a fantastic way and a resource to get into it, but which ones should you listen to? So let's go through the list, and I've got quite a bit of a list. So the first one, of course, I'm going to tell you, Self-Publishing Made Easy Now podcast. And the reason is because I personally cover a lot of different issues when it comes to self-publishing. We're hitting anything from the mindset issues to practical self-publishing issues. We go through marketing, all the different techniques on marketing, hit the latest news, and we even hit secret strategies on self-publishing. So definitely worth subscribing if you're not already subscribed to the Self-Publishing Made Easy Now podcast with, well, me. But let's move on to the next one. I'm most interested in getting to other podcasts we have not discussed on this channel before. So the first one I'm going to hit is going to be the Self-Publishing Show. Now this one is with Mark Dawson. He's a bestseller and self-published author on multiple platforms, including Amazon and Kobo. In fact, I was corresponding with him in 2015. I remember really back in the early days, he had come out with a course on how to do Facebook ads, and we were going back and forth. I was discussing some of the basic strategies regarding how to use the ads. Now, I myself never figured that out. The key was he just had a bunch of bundles and books that were already somewhat popular, and then he would be giving these books out, and then people would be getting on his email list, and then he was able to sell further, which really propelled the sales for his specific books. And at the time, he was teaching a course on that. But now he also has a podcast, the Self-Publishing Show podcast, which is definitely worth checking out. And the other thing is he's the author of the John Milton thriller series. That's probably what he's best known for today. I'm not sure if he's still doing the Facebook ads any longer. The next one is the Book Marketing Show. And the Book Marketing Show is not one that I've listened to. I can't say I've listened to it too much, but it's with Dave Chesson. And I can tell you one thing I do have in common with Dave Chesson. It's the fact that he is the inventor of Publisher Rocket, which is a phenomenal tool when it comes to running ads and getting keyword ideas that you can test with KD Spy, which is my favorite tool in self-publishing. And so it's a really powerful tool there, and it also helps with the categories that you're going to be putting your books in. But the thing is, you're going to be able to hear him interview a lot of the experts in self-publishing, and that makes David, since he is an absolute expert when it comes to self-publishing, and you're going to want to listen to many of the ideas that he has. There's especially things like Amazon ads in particular was one of the areas I feel he excels quite a bit in. The next one, Self-Publishing School, and that's with Chandler Bolt. And Chandler in the Self-Publishing School offers a lot of premium level courses and coaching within his area there. But on his podcast, it's mostly interviews, and I definitely do listen to him. And he's interviewed people like Hal Elrod and Susie Moore, Robert Kiyosaki. And I can tell you, Robert Kiyosaki was maybe where I first got my very start in the whole self-publishing game. Even the thought process of the self-publishing came from the Rich Dad Poor Dad concept. So he's interviewed a lot of the absolute top players in their game who have also been through the whole publishing process, and he discusses with them what strategies and takeaways they have that also can help you with your self-publishing. So this is something you're definitely going to want to check out. That's with Chandler Bolt, and I definitely subscribe to this podcast. The next one is the Ask Ally Self-Publishing Advice podcast, and there are a lot of different aspects of advice. I also listen to this one because I also am a member of the Alliance for Independent Authors. I originally joined mostly because I wanted to get free promo codes for Ingram Spark. However, I realized that they have a lot of additional services that are definitely worth checking out. You can check below in the description if you'd like more information on Ally and all of the services, including lawyers and all sorts of stuff, to really fighting and advocating for independent authors just like yourself, or if you're an aspiring independent author, which is definitively the way to go, especially after their latest podcast. They were discussing some of the challenges you have as your books are going through sensitivity checks and things like that when you're going with traditional publishers and having to actually change things. I think it was one recently with a Vietnam vet who had written a book and was being forced to change the content of the book, even though he's just saying as things happen. And so these are sorts of things where you get the reasons why you should definitely go with self-publishing as a huge, as the correct way to go. If you've got a book and you don't have a deal, and even if you do have a deal, you may still consider to go with self-publishing. The next one is Begin Self-Publishing Podcast. Now, this is one I have not listened to much, and it's by Tim Lewis. It was launched. The Begin Self-Publishing Podcast is to promote self-publishing and to try and ensure that people are able to see how the fundamentals of self-publishing are, which is, of course, the important part, which is understanding the basics of self-publishing and safely navigate through services available for self-published authors and not be ripped off by the sadly large number of sharks in the area. And he's exactly right. Tim Lewis is exactly right. There are a lot of people who will completely rip you off if you aren't careful with what you're doing. And so one of the ways you can see is people have been around for a really long time. It's a fantastic way to figure out who you can trust, the people who have been around, the people who are not telling you strategies that are going to get you banned on Amazon, and also people who aren't going to tell you you're going to be an overnight millionaire, but rather this idea of if you can simplify self-publishing and slowly make it through the steps, you're going to get your book out, and then you're going to learn the marketing phases. And these are skills you can use in lots of areas that move far beyond self-publishing. So it's definitely worth a listen to Tim Lewis's Begin Self-Publishing Podcast. The next one is the SPA Girls Podcast. Now, this is another one I have not listened to much, but in the SPA Girls Podcast, you get a weekly show with information, tips, and advice on how to get started with self-publishing for your books. And of course, it's girls who are sitting around, self-publishing girls who are discussing a lot of the strategies there. And so this is something that you might want to check out if you're interested in learning more about self-publishing. And I sometimes like the roundtable effect as well. It really helps you as opposed to just a single person talking. Sometimes you get a little bit more variety. Now moving on to one of my favorite ones on the whole list, which is the Sell More Books Show, and that is with Brian Cohen. I've listened to this one probably as long as I've listened to almost any self-publishing podcast of any of the ones that I'm going to mention. And the thing is, they help with all sorts of stuff. I would tell you they do strategies and a lot of the things that these other podcasts do. But the thing that I have appreciated most with theirs, it is the fact that they share the struggles they have with self-publishing, with their own personal books and seeing sales not exactly the way they'd like to see it. They share the experiments that they're doing, and I know Brian Cohen also has a course on Amazon ads. That's one of the things he's known for. I even had him do one of my descriptions if we go backwards in time a number of years back to 2016 when he was doing descriptions for books. Now, I can say I didn't necessarily keep that description, but like everything, we're doing experiments. The other thing I appreciate on this show is that they go through the news related to self-publishing to make sure that you're informed of the latest changes. And I tell you what, self-publishing has a lot of changes that are being made on a regular basis, things you're going to want to stay informed about, and Sell More Book Show is a great way to do that. The next one is Self-Publish in 30 Days. And this particular one is done by the 10X author and chief book officer, Darren M. Palmer, where he does interviews with different people, helping you navigate through the jungle that is self-publishing. And he goes through lots and lots of different strategies. This is also one that I have not listened to so much, but it is definitely worth a listen when you're doing self-publishing. Now, another one is the Self-Publishing with Dale. And this is one I do, in fact, listen to quite a bit. I really enjoy Dale's style and a lot of the content information that he has. He shares an awful lot of tips and strategies. So his biggest thing is just trying to help you learn how to self-publish and sell and build an unstoppable author brand, because he understands building around a brand is a fantastic way to get more sales on your book. And he goes through all sorts of relevant information, up-to-date information in the world of self-publishing. And also what I appreciate is that he shares all of the tips that he has and the tricks that he uses in order to get the books to sell. He's very transparent, and I'm on his Discord server as well, where his community is incredibly active, sharing all sorts of things, how to do covers, how to do ads, what do you do if this happens to your account, all sorts of useful information. Definitely worth checking out Self-Publishing with Dale. The next one is The Bestseller, a self-publishing podcast by Reedsy. And so what their whole thing is about, it's taking a book, the whole 9 yards. As they say, it's easier said than done, but it's also easier than you'd think. And their whole thing is taking from Reedsy, this is a bestseller, a podcast for aspiring authors, demystifying the process of self-publishing a book one chapter at a time. And this is along the same lines of a lot of the other podcasts where we're looking at the steps involved in self-publishing and then also the strategies and some of the news that comes into it. This is not one that I have listened to too much. So in conclusion, we can see that self-publishing has a lot of really powerful things to offer. These podcasts are a fantastic resource that you definitely should check out. If you're not checking out one or another, I would definitely recommend you, of course, to check out my podcast so that you don't miss any of the tactics and strategies. It's a great way to quickly move through all of the podcasts. And I have hundreds and hundreds of podcasts that are available that you can listen to. And I would recommend subscribing to these others because you have different voices that say different things and have different perspectives when it comes to self-publishing. My question for you today, though, is which of these, or maybe you have another podcast that you especially like listening to, and I won't be offended if it isn't mine. All right, thanks, and I'll check you above in the video, right above me here. Thanks.